With the help of some of my famous friends here on YouTube, I want to show you the 10 worst kettlebell mistakes that you must avoid. Many of these mistakes are typical beginner mistakes, and they happen because people treat the kettlebell like a weird-shaped dumbbell. Mea culpa. I was just like this, and that's the reason why I include some of my mistakes in this list as well. And if you're over 40 and you want to become strong, fit, and lean without going to the gym twice as fast, then download my free ebook in the first link in the description. Mistake number 1 is a recurring theme in this video. I call it COE. This stands for Complexity Over Efficacy. We think that complex-looking exercises might give us some special benefits. The reality is that the basics take care of 99% of our problems. An additional effect that I created in this particular mistake is looking stupid. So we can even say that sometimes efficacy has to make way for stupidity. Now, the exercise that I was thinking about as I was doing this funny looking movement was putting the kettlebell overhead and then going into a squat. Now, the idea in and all by itself isn't bad, but if we want to do it correctly, we want to do a so-called overhead squat. An overhead squat requires a lot of structural integrity and strength, as well as kinesthetic literacy. Here's what it looks like. Bell overhead, chest up, knees out, hips back, arms extended. If this is too complex for you, you can split the two exercises, doing a press first, and then a rack squat. Our dear friend B-Shred completely obliterated the Kettlebell Clean. There is one underlying phase that you have to understand in order to master a clean, and that is a rack position. With kettlebell training, we're simulating boxing or, matter of fact, a martial art where you have to defend yourself. And I'm not a professional or expert when it comes to martial arts, but I understand that I want to pull my arms in to guard as much of my upper body as possible as the shots are coming in. Same with the kettlebell. So if I rack the kettlebell, I don't have it out here, but I got the kettlebell close to my body. And as you can see, the elbow as well as my wrist, they almost form a vertical line. So when the kettlebell comes up, I think about keeping the elbow close to the body with the handle pointing slightly towards my heart. Now, the major mistake with the windmill is a lack of kinesthetic literacy and not understanding technique. The gentleman in question was just reaching for the floor while keeping a weight overhead. This is a recipe for disaster. And to be blunt and honest, the only lifting that happened in this particular video was my level of concern. Here's how to do a proper windmill. I snatch the bell overhead. If I'm using my right arm, both of my feet point to the left side. I push my hips into a side hinge. My T-spine rotates to the front. My left arm connects with my inner thigh. Now I tilt my upper body towards the floor until my arm touches the bottom. Now I rotate and stand back up into the original position. Mistake, none other than the legendary Jeff Cavalier demonstrates how not to clean a kettlebell. Now, we already looked at the rack position from B-Shred's mistake, but now with Athlean X's mistake, we have to understand a hand insertion. Inserting your hand inside the window of the kettlebell looks like this. I make sure that my full wrist is inside the window of the kettlebell. The bottom handle or the horn connects with my forearm bone. my web space connects with the upper corner, and now the kettlebell sits on my frame. I can wiggle my fingers or close it into a fist. Is in my top 5 of the worst well-known celebrity fitness trainers that walk the face of the earth. Her performance in The Biggest Loser is second to none of one of the worst behaviors ever seen from a trainer towards their clients. And another one of her worst performances ever is that particular kettlebell swing that you just saw. She gave one of the worst cues I've ever heard in kettlebell training, and that is to hinge at the waist instead of at the hips when it comes to the kettlebell swing. Now, even though I'm aware of the fact that the spine is pretty resilient, we want to use the strongest muscles of the body when we swing, clean, or snatch for that matter, and that is the glutes. So we have to understand how to hinge. So whether you use a deadlift type of swing or hard style as they call it, or a pendulum swing, you always want to understand how to hinge at the hips by pushing the hips back, upper body leaning forward, building tension in the hamstrings and the posterior chain. And as we stand back up, we imagine crushing grapes beneath our feet to activate the biggest muscles that we have that sit right here. Also in my top 5 of the worst fitness coaches I have ever seen is Bob Harper. Bob Harper's kettlebell workouts are proof that not all reps are created equal. Now, even though Bob Harper doesn't seem to understand a single thing when it comes to fitness training or kettlebells, there is an exercise where you do a deadlift with a rounded back, and we call this a Jefferson curl. It looks like this. This is for people who already have a resilient spine and want to strengthen it further or from every angle. For the rest of us, it makes sense to properly hinge, keep a straight spine, and then use our strongest muscles in the body, similar to the swing, to do the deadlift. So I push the hips back, 90-degree angle, spine is straight, back is flat, grabbing the kettlebell with both hands. Now I stand up and I crush grapes as I reach the top position. And just in case if you're wondering what kind of kettlebell I'm using, it's the Pro Kettlebell by my friend Nikolai Puchlov, proudly made in the USA. Check the link in the description to get your Pro Kettlebell right now. And don't forget to use our code Lebe to get 10% off your next purchase. Another example of COE, complexity over efficacy, comes from functional patterns, also known as one of the most aggressive fools in the fitness industry. If you want to do some jumping exercises, you can do plyometrics, look at the work of Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky, understand the shock method, and then go from there. But actually, I was thinking pretty hard to replicate this stupid movement that you just saw, jumping around with 2 kettlebells and then swinging them at your sides. Now, the one thing that I came up was with one of the most powerful kettlebell exercises that you can do that activates every single muscle in your body, and that is the snatch. We swing the kettlebell between the legs, we use the legs to catapult the weight overhead, and once it lands overhead, we fixate it, and then we drop it back down. Is back on the list with a rotational exercise that doesn't make sense at all. Unilateral exercises like the swing, the clean, and the snatch, or the suitcase walk, work your core and your opposite side like nothing else. Because the empty side has to work hard in order for your body to not collapse. And if you want to take it to the next level by rotating your trunk in a safe manner, you can do the windmill that we just covered in the beginning of the video. ethics failed horribly trying to demonstrate the kettlebell snatch by making massive beginner mistakes. Yes, the snatch requires a lot of skill to learn. And there are so many little mistakes packed into that little demonstration that it takes way too long for me to pick apart each and every one of them. So instead, I want to focus on the biggest and major mistakes that beginners make when they snatch a kettlebell for the first time. We call it arm dominance. So instead of using the hips to catapult the weight overhead, essentially using the strongest muscles to do the exercise, beginners use their arms. Correct this by thinking that you want to crush grapes every time you snatch the kettlebell overhead, while making sure that the arm stays connected to your body as long as possible. Not only makes a major beginner mistake in the goblet squat, but she, and by extension Hollywood, summarizes the issue of COE, complexity over efficacy. The goblet squat is essentially a front squat that requires an upright torso. And this is the biggest mistake that beginners make. They don't have the kinesthetic literacy, so they drop down into the hunchback, but they also don't have the strength to hold that position. This is what a goblet squat looks like. And there are 3 cues that you can use to correct your goblet squat, and that is chest up, hips back, knees out.
What you do is go do about 8 to 10 reps of this, and then...
Why don't you edit this out, guys?
The final mistake are kettlebell-specific ab exercises. First of all, you don't need a kettlebell for this type of exercise. And second of all, the kettlebell already trains and strengthens your midsection from the chest down to your knees. This is the USP of kettlebell training. It develops and strengthens your core like nothing else. So instead of wasting your time with some kind of ab exercises, rather do more clean and presses. Because as we already learned, unilateral exercises, only working with one side while the other side is empty, also works your whole obliques, mids, abs like crazy.
Having a celebrity fitness trainer helping correct my form is making my day.
Now, a word of advice at the end. I was just as stupid like all these influencers and celebrities that you just saw in the video. Now, I'm using the word stupid loosely, and I don't want to say it in a negative sense. But when I picked up the kettlebell for the first time, I thought I could just apply my regular fitness knowledge to this particular tool and then actually use it like a weird shaped dumbbell. But after looking like a fool and trying some stupid exercises that I saw on the gram or on YouTube, I decided to switch things up. So I reached out to the legendary Steve Carter. And when he came in 2019 and certified Angie and me in the proper ways of kettlebell training according to his standards, my whole world changed. This was the pivotal moment where I not only chose to dig into the whole of kettlebell training and become an expert, it was also that particular moment where I realized that I didn't have a single clue on how to use a kettlebell correctly. After I learned the dark secrets of kettlebell training, I didn't look back. I completely revised and changed my approach. I've gotten some crazy results. I've gotten rid of all these mistakes that you can do, and I finally understood how to use a kettlebell the proper way. And this is what this channel is all about. So here's the next thing that you have to do. Clean and press that like and subscribe button. Share with a friend who's also interested in kettlebells. And if you made it this far, download my free ebook in the first link in the description called the Kettlebell Code. If you're over 40, 50, or 60, you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to take care of your fitness, this is where the kettlebell comes in. And I want to give you a shortcut. I want to teach you how to use one of the best tools to ever grace the earth, and that is the kettlebell. So that shortcut is going to help you. It's going to show you beginner mistakes, the best workout that you can get started with right now. So download it in the first link in the description or in the pinned comment. It's 100% free.